Beverly Hills, a city where luxury and elegance define everyday life, woke up to a chilling mystery on the morning of June 8, 2020. The sun had barely risen when a 911 dispatcher received a call that would set off a chain of events no one could have anticipated. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost unnervingly so. "My husband isn't breathing," said the caller, Lorelai Shepard. "I think he died in his sleep." The dispatcher, trained to detect nuances in voice and emotion, couldn't help but notice how composed Lorelai sounded. There was no panic, no desperation, just a controlled monotone. Within minutes, paramedics were dispatched to the Harland Drake residence, a sprawling modern mansion nestled in the hills. The house itself was a masterpiece, designed by Harland Drake, the very man whose life now hung in the balance, or so they thought. When the responders arrived, they were greeted by a picture-perfect scene. The mansion's immaculate architecture boasted floor-to-ceiling glass windows that offered breathtaking views of the city below. Inside, every corner of the house screamed opulence. Yet, as they entered the master bedroom, a peculiar stillness enveloped the air, an unnatural calm that felt almost staged. Harland Drake, the celebrated architect, lay lifeless in the center of the king-sized bed. The bed itself was flawlessly made, the sheets smoothed and tucked as if for a magazine shoot. On the nightstand sat a cup of tea, half-finished, its contents still faintly warm. The air was scented with a faint trace of lavender, likely from an essential oil diffuser humming softly in the corner. The scene was pristine, eerily so. Lorelai stood nearby, dressed in a sleek yoga outfit that seemed too perfect for the early hour. Her face was a mask of calmness, her movements deliberate and measured. She spoke to the paramedics with an unsettling composure, recounting how her husband had complained of fatigue the night before. "He's been under a lot of stress with work," she explained, her voice steady. "I thought it was just exhaustion." But something about the scene didn't sit right with the first responders. The room was too orderly, too perfect, lacking the disarray one might expect in a sudden medical emergency. And then there was Lorelai's demeanor. Most people in her position would be distraught, panicked, or at least visibly shaken. Yet, she seemed almost detached, as if she were discussing the weather rather than her husband's untimely demise. As the paramedics conducted their initial assessment, they found no obvious signs of foul play. Harland's body showed no marks or injuries, and the teacup on the nightstand seemed innocuous enough. To the untrained eye, it appeared to be a natural death. Yet, the paramedics' unease lingered. It was as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for the truth to emerge. The police were called to the scene, not because there was immediate evidence of a crime, but because the circumstances felt too peculiar to ignore. Detective Jonathan Reeves, a seasoned investigator with a knack for reading between the lines, arrived shortly after. He was struck by the surreal perfection of the scene. "It's like a set," he muttered under his breath. "Too neat. Too controlled." Detective Reeves approached Lorelai, who stood by the large bedroom window, gazing out at the morning skyline. She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Mrs. Shepard," he began, his tone professional yet probing. "Can you walk me through what happened this morning?" Lorelai recounted the events with the same calmness she had displayed earlier. She described how Harland had gone to bed early the previous night, complaining of exhaustion. She had checked on him in the morning, only to find him unresponsive. "I thought he was still sleeping," she said, her voice steady. "But when I tried to wake him, he didn't move. That's when I called 911. Her account was straightforward, yet something about her delivery felt off to Reeves. He noted her lack of visible emotion, her measured tone. Grief manifests in different ways, he reminded himself, but the thought did little to quell his suspicions. As the forensic team arrived to examine the scene, Reeves took a closer look around the bedroom. The bed, impeccably made, stood out to him. Who makes the bed after discovering their spouse unresponsive, he wondered. The cup of tea on the nightstand also caught his attention. He bent down, examining it carefully. The faint aroma of chamomile wafted up, but it offered no immediate answers. Meanwhile, Lorelai remained composed, answering questions with practiced ease. She spoke about Harland's work stresses, his demanding schedule, and his recent complaints of fatigue. But as Reeves observed her, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story. Outside the mansion, the media had already begun to gather, their cameras trained on the grand entrance. News of Harland Drake's death was sure to make headlines, given his prominence in the world of architecture. Yet, inside the house, the focus was shifting. What had initially seemed like a tragic but natural death was beginning to feel like the opening act of a far more sinister story. Detective Reeves' instincts told him that this was no ordinary case. The pristine scene, the perfect facade, and Lorelai's unsettling composure all pointed to something deeper. As he left the room to consult with his team, he glanced back at Lorelai, who had returned to her position by the window. She stood there, motionless, staring out at the city below. For a brief moment, her calm exterior seemed to falter. Reeves caught a glimpse of something in her eyes, not grief, but calculation. The storm was coming, and Reeves knew they were only at the beginning. Harland Drake's life was nothing short of extraordinary. Born into modest beginnings, he discovered his passion for architecture at an early age. His innate talent and relentless drive earned him a scholarship to one of the most prestigious design schools in the country. By the time he was 30, Harland had become a household name in the world of modern luxury, redefining what it meant to live in style. His projects were more than just buildings, they were masterpieces, innovative, functional, and breathtakingly beautiful. Each design bore his signature blend of clean lines, open spaces, and an almost magical ability to harmonize with its surroundings. Drake Designs, his architectural firm, quickly rose to prominence, becoming synonymous with exclusivity and sophistication. Celebrities, business moguls, and political elites sought him out, willing to pay exorbitant sums for a chance to live in one of his creations. Yet, despite his success, Harland remained grounded. He was a man of quiet dignity, often shying away from the spotlight. His true passion lay in philanthropy. He devoted a significant portion of his earnings to charitable causes, particularly those supporting aspiring architects from underprivileged backgrounds. Harland's personal life seemed just as perfect as his professional one. In Lorelai Shepard, he had found a partner who matched his ambition and elegance. Lorelai was a force in her own right, a prominent art curator known for her impeccable taste and keen eye for emerging talent. Her exhibitions were the talk of the town, attracting art enthusiasts and collectors from around the globe. With her grace and sophistication, Lorelai was the perfect complement to Harland's understated charm. Together, they were the golden couple of Beverly Hills. There lives a seamless blend of art, architecture, and affluence. Their home was a testament to their shared vision of beauty and functionality. Nestled in the hills of Beverly Hills, the mansion was a masterpiece of modern design. Harland had poured his soul into its creation, crafting a space that was both stunning and personal. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, while the interiors were adorned with carefully curated art pieces, many handpicked by Lorelai herself. The house featured an infinity pool, a state-of-the-art home theater, and a sprawling library filled with rare books a sanctuary for the couple to escape the demands of their high-profile lives? Despite their outward perfection, cracks had begun to form beneath the surface. Harland's dedication to his work often left little time for his personal life, a fact that hadn't gone unnoticed by Lorelai. She thrived on social connections and public recognition, while Harland preferred solitude and quiet moments away from the limelight. Their differing priorities, once a source of balance, began to drive a wedge between them. Lorelai, ever the social butterfly, found herself increasingly dissatisfied with the life she and Harland had built. The pressure to maintain their status in Beverly Hills elite circles weighed heavily on her. She poured herself into her work, organizing lavish gallery events and cultivating relationships with influential figures. Yet, no amount of professional success could fill the growing void in her personal life. Harland, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to his wife's discontent. He continued to focus on his projects, believing that his work was a reflection of their shared dreams. To him, the mansion was not just a home but a symbol of their union, a testament to what they had achieved together. But for Lorelai, it had become a gilded cage, a constant reminder of the life she felt slipping away. As the months passed, the tension between them became palpable. Small disagreements escalated into heated arguments, their once harmonious partnership fracturing under the strain. Yet, to the outside world, they maintained the facade of a perfect marriage. They smiled for the cameras, hosted extravagant parties, and continued to play their roles as Beverly Hills golden couple. But behind closed doors, their relationship was unraveling. Lorelai's dissatisfaction grew, fueled by a sense of betrayal she couldn't quite articulate. She had sacrificed so much to be by Harland's side, yet she felt invisible, her needs and desires overshadowed by his relentless pursuit of success. Harland, in turn, struggled to understand her growing distance, misinterpreting her frustration as a passing phase. It was against this backdrop of silent discontent and unspoken grievances that the events of June 8, 2020, began to unfold. The perfect picture of their lives was about to shatter, revealing the darkness that had been lurking beneath the surface all along. The cracks in Harland and Lorelai's marriage widened as the COVID-19 pandemic swept across the globe. For many, the lockdowns brought families closer together, but for Harland and Lorelai, they magnified the fissures in their relationship. The financial strain on Harland's architectural firm was palpable. Drake Designs, which had long thrived on high-profile projects and an affluent clientele, faced an unprecedented decline in demand. The glamorous lifestyle they had carefully cultivated began to seem more precarious with each passing day. Harland, ever the meticulous planner, turned his attention to their finances, determined to weather the storm. But as he pored over bank statements and credit card bills, he couldn't ignore the discrepancies that leapt off the pages. Luxury purchases, designer handbags, exclusive jewelry, and exorbitant spa treatments lined the accounts, each one more extravagant than the last. Harland couldn't recall Lorelai mentioning any of these expenses. When he confronted her, she waved it off with a dismissive laugh. "It's for the gallery," she said, her tone light. "You know how important it is to keep up appearances." But Harland wasn't convinced. His unease grew when he stumbled upon a bill for a private retreat in Malibu, a retreat he hadn't attended or even heard about. "When did you go to Malibu?" he asked one evening, his voice edged with suspicion. Lorelai's response was nonchalant. "It was a last-minute trip. I needed to clear my head for an upcoming exhibition." The tension between them reached a boiling point in April 2020, when Harland made a discovery that cut deeper than financial mismanagement. Searching through a drawer in his office, he came across a package of contraceptives. The expiration date indicated they had been purchased months earlier, long after he and Lorelai had agreed to start a family. The sight of them felt like a betrayal. For years, they had talked about having children, envisioning a future filled with laughter and shared milestones. Yet, here was tangible evidence that Lorelai had been silently avoiding the commitment they had both claimed to want. "How long have you been lying to me?" Harland demanded that evening, holding the package up for her to see. Lorelai, caught off guard, hesitated for a moment before responding. "I'm not lying," she said defensively. I don't think we're ready. Your work, my gallery, it's not the right time." Harland's anger was palpable. "The right time? We've been talking about this for years, Lorelai. This was our plan, our future. How could you make this decision without even telling me?" But Lorelai was unmoved. "I'm just being realistic," she retorted. "We're both under so much pressure. Bringing a child into this, it wouldn't be fair to anyone." To Harland, her words felt like a slap in the face. The woman he had once viewed as his partner in every sense now seemed like a stranger. Her priorities, once aligned with his own, had shifted in ways he couldn't understand. The realization that she had been hiding her true feelings about their future left him feeling isolated and betrayed. As the weeks wore on, the distance between them grew. Harland threw himself into his work, seeking solace in the familiarity of his designs. Lorelai, meanwhile, became increasingly absorbed in her social circles, attending virtual galas and planning future exhibitions. Their once vibrant connection had dulled into a series of cold exchanges and half-hearted attempts at conversation. But beneath the surface, Lorelai's dissatisfaction festered. She resented Harland's scrutiny of her spending, his fixation on their finances, and his inability to understand her needs. To her, he had become controlling, stifling the freedom she had always cherished. And yet, she couldn't bring herself to leave. The life they had built together, with all its trappings of success, was too alluring to walk away from. Unbeknownst to Harland, Lorelai began seeking comfort elsewhere. At first, it was innocent long phone calls with friends, extended yoga sessions that gave her space to breathe. But soon, these small escapes weren't enough. She craved something more, something that would make her feel alive again. And in her search for fulfillment, she found Cole Ashton, a yoga instructor whose charm and attentiveness offered her the validation she so desperately sought. The stage was set for a betrayal that would shatter their lives, but for now, the cracks in their facade remained hidden from the world. To outsiders, Harland and Lorelai still appeared to be the perfect couple, their lives a testament to success and harmony. But behind closed doors, their marriage was a house of cards, teetering on the brink of collapse. Harland Drake had always been a man of foresight, meticulously planning every aspect of his life, from his groundbreaking architectural projects to his financial affairs. However, the emotional distance growing between him and Lorelai left him feeling vulnerable in a way he had never experienced before. Sensing the subtle shifts in her behavior, the late-night phone calls, her frequent absences under the guise of work, and her disinterest in their shared future, Harland began to suspect that their marriage might be nearing its end. In May 2020, Harland decided to take proactive measures to protect his legacy. He reached out to his sister, Delia Gardner, a restaurateur in Pasadena and one of the few people he trusted implicitly. Delia had always been his confidant, offering him grounded advice during his most challenging moments. Over a quiet dinner at her home, he opened up about his concerns. "I don't know who Lorelai is anymore," Harland confessed, his voice heavy with frustration. "She's distant, evasive. I've tried to talk to her, but it's like she's in another world. Delia listened intently, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. Harland, you've worked too hard to let anyone jeopardize what you've built, she said firmly. If you think things are heading in the wrong direction, you need to protect yourself. Her words struck a chord. That evening, Harland decided to revise his will, ensuring that the bulk of his estate, including the mansion, his stake in Drake Designs, and other assets would be entrusted to Delia. Lorelai, once the primary beneficiary, would see her share reduced to a modest trust fund, enough to cover basic expenses but far from the lavish lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. Harland contacted Ray Howard, his longtime attorney, and arranged for the new will to be drafted. Ray, while surprised by the sudden request, understood the gravity of the situation. "This is a big step, Harland," he cautioned. "Are you certain about this?" Harland nodded without hesitation. "I need to be prepared for whatever comes next." The revised will was finalized within days. Harland insisted on keeping a copy at home, locked securely in the safe in his private office. He believed the changes were a safeguard, a necessary precaution in light of the growing cracks in his marriage. Unbeknownst to Harland, Lorelai's suspicions had also been growing. She could sense the subtle shift in his demeanor, the way he seemed more guarded and preoccupied. Her curiosity turned to alarm when she noticed him spending long hours in his office, poring over documents with a seriousness that was impossible to ignore. One evening, while Harland was away for a business meeting, Lorelai's unease got the better of her. She ventured into his office, her eyes scanning the neatly arranged desk for any clues. It was there, in a drawer left partially open, that she found the key to the safe. Her heart raced as she approached the steel box, her hands trembling as she turned the key and lifted the lid. Inside, she found the folder marked "Updated Will." Lorelai's breath caught in her throat as she unfolded the document and began to read. The words on the page felt like a slap in the face. Harland had effectively removed her from the center of their shared empire, leaving her with a fraction of what she had once been promised. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. Everything she had worked to maintain, the social standing, the art gallery, the luxurious lifestyle, was at risk of slipping through her fingers. Her mind raced with questions. Why would he do this, she thought. Does he know about Cole? Has he been planning this all along? Fury and desperation swirled within her as she closed the safe and returned the key to its hiding place. To Harland, this may have been a precaution, but to Lorelai, it was an act of betrayal. She had sacrificed so much to be his wife, to uphold the image of perfection they presented to the world. And now, he was preparing to cast her aside. Over the next few days, Lorelai's behavior became increasingly erratic. She found herself fixating on the will, unable to shake the feeling of impending doom. She confided in Cole during one of their private sessions, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "He's cutting me out," she said, her hands clenching the edges of the yoga mat. "Everything we built together, he's giving it all to Delia. I'll be left with nothing." Cole's expression darkened as he listened. "That's not fair," he said, his tone dripping with indignation. "You've given him everything. He can't just take it all away." Lorelai looked at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "What am I supposed to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "If he signs that will, my life is over." It was in that moment that Cole leaned closer, his voice low and conspiratorial. "You can't let him do this to you," he said. "There has to be a way to stop him." His words planted a seed in Lorelai's mind, one that would soon grow into a dangerous plan. The will had changed everything, not just in terms of finances, but in the way Lorelai viewed her marriage. Harland was no longer her partner, he was her adversary, someone who had to be dealt with before he could destroy everything she held dear. As the days turned into weeks, Lorelai's desperation deepened. She began to see Harland's every action as a calculated move against her, each decision a step closer to signing the will and sealing her fate. The once gilded cage of their marriage had become a prison, and Lorelai was determined to escape no matter the cost. In the weeks following her discovery of the will, Lorelai's desperation metastasized into something darker. Her sense of betrayal, coupled with the fear of losing her carefully constructed life, left her grasping for control. Her private sessions with Cole Ashton became more frequent, the yoga mats and meditation exercises giving way to whispered conversations that veered into dangerous territory. One afternoon, as they sat on the polished wooden floor of the studio, Lorelai vented her anger to Cole. Her voice trembled with frustration as she recounted Harland's apparent disregard for everything they had built together. "He's not just taking the money," she said, her tone laced with bitterness. "He's taking my life. Everything I've sacrificed, everything I've worked for, it's all slipping away." Cole listened intently, his brow furrowed as he absorbed her words. For weeks, he had played the role of the supportive confidant, validating her feelings and offering comfort. But now, he saw an opportunity to deepen their connection and perhaps to gain something more for himself. "Lorelai," he said softly, his voice steady and persuasive. "You don't have to let him do this to you. There are ways to stop him." She looked at him, her eyes narrowing as she tried to decipher his meaning. "What are you saying?" Cole leaned closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "I've read stories. True crime cases. There are ways to make it look natural. An accident, or something that no one would question. You said yourself he's been stressed, that he's complained about his heart. People would believe it." Her breath caught in her throat. The implication was clear, but the words hung unspoken between them, a dangerous suggestion that she couldn't bring herself to articulate. "I don't know," she murmured, her voice trembling. "That's extreme." "It's not as extreme as losing everything," Cole countered, his tone calm but insistent. "Think about it. He's already planning to cut you out. If you don't act now, you'll be left with nothing." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling over them like a shroud. Lorelai's mind raced, torn between the fear of losing her life as she knew it and the moral boundaries she was teetering on the edge of crossing. But as the days passed, Cole's suggestion began to take root in her mind. She couldn't shake the idea, couldn't ignore the growing sense of inevitability. Cole, emboldened by Lorelai's growing desperation, began to lay out the details of a plan. He introduced her to the concept of digitalis, a potent toxin derived from the foxglove plant. "It mimics a heart attack," he explained during one of their secret meetings. "It's nearly impossible to detect unless someone knows exactly what they're looking for. And even then, it just looks like natural causes." Lorelai listened, her stomach churning with a mixture of fear and fascination. The plan was chilling in its simplicity and its plausibility. "How would we even get something like that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole smirked, his confidence unnerving. "The dark web," he replied. "It's easier than you think. We'll use a VPN to mask our location, create an anonymous account, and have it delivered to a PO box. No one will trace it back to us." Over the next week, they began to put the plan into motion. Cole guided Lorelai through the process of setting up a secure account, their conversations laced with a nervous energy as they navigated the murky corners of the internet. Finally, they found a seller, an anonymous vendor offering small vials of digitalis under the guise of herbal supplements. The transaction was completed in a matter of minutes. Lorelai's hands shook as she clicked the confirm button, the reality of what they were doing sinking in. The package would arrive within days, delivered to a rented mailbox in a neighboring town. As they waited for the delivery, Lorelai and Cole turned their attention to crafting her alibi. Every detail had to be perfect, every potential question accounted for. Lorelai began to schedule social media posts in advance, filling her feed with updates about upcoming gallery events and yoga sessions. She arranged for several of her friends to receive messages from her on the night of the planned event, creating a digital trail that would place her firmly away from the scene. Meanwhile, Cole coached her on how to maintain her composure. "You have to be calm," he told her during one of their late-night meetings. "No overacting, no signs of guilt. If they ask questions, stick to the story. He was stressed, he wasn't feeling well, you thought it was just exhaustion. People will believe it." Lorelai nodded, absorbing his instructions with a grim determination. She knew what was at stake, knew that there was no turning back. The wheels were in motion, and all she could do now was see it through to the end. When the package finally arrived, Lorelai felt a wave of nausea as she held the small, unmarked box in her hands. Inside, nestled among innocuous packaging, was the vial that would change everything. She placed it in her purse, her mind racing with the weight of what was to come. In the days leading up to the planned event, Lorelai maintained a facade of normalcy. She attended her usual yoga classes, posted updates on social media, and even shared a few laughs with Harland over dinner. But beneath the surface, her thoughts were consumed by the plan, each step meticulously rehearsed in her mind. And then, the night arrived. June 7, 2020, Drake Mansion, a modern architectural masterpiece perched on the hills, cloaked in an eerie silence. The evening began like many others in the Drake household, yet Lorelai's demeanor betrayed the calm exterior of their meticulously curated home. The warm glow of recessed lighting illuminated the glass walls, which reflected the sprawling cityscape below. Harland sat in his study, focused on his designs, a glass of water beside him and his work meticulously arranged. He seemed tired but unaware of the storm brewing in the shadows. Lorelai, dressed in a flowing silk robe, moved quietly through the house. Her movements were deliberate, almost rehearsed. She stepped into the pristine kitchen, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. With practiced precision, she prepared Harland's evening tea, a ritual that had become part of their routine. Tonight, however, was different. She reached into a drawer and retrieved a small, unassuming vial. The liquid inside shimmered faintly under the kitchen lights. Digitalis, an extract she'd procured with Cole's help. Its deadly potency was masked by its ordinary appearance. Her hands trembled slightly as she uncapped the vial, but she steadied herself, reminding herself of the life she was protecting. Carefully, she measured a few drops and stirred them into the steaming tea. The liquid swirled, seemingly innocent, as if mocking the dark intent behind it. Lorelai placed the cup on a silver tray, ensuring every detail was flawless, from the folded linen napkin to the delicate spoon resting beside the saucer. Taking a deep breath, she carried the tray to Harland's study. Her steps were light, almost gliding, as she approached him. "Here you go," she said softly, placing the tea on his desk. Her voice carried a warmth that masked her true intentions. "This will help you sleep." Harland glanced up, offering her a tired smile. "Thanks, Lorelai," he murmured, reaching for the cup. He took a sip, savoring the familiar flavor, oblivious to the betrayal concealed within. Lorelai lingered for a moment, watching him. Her heart pounded in her chest, each beat echoing like a drum. Would he notice? Would he taste something off? But Harland simply returned to his work, engrossed in his designs. Satisfied, she turned and walked away, her step steady, her expression unreadable. Later that night, the house was silent except for the soft hum of the city outside. Lorelai lay awake in their bedroom, staring at the ceiling. The clock on her bedside table ticked loudly, each second dragging on endlessly. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind countless times, but reality was far heavier than she anticipated. At 6:45 a.m., she finally rose. Her silk robe flowed behind her as she walked down the hall to Harland's study. She opened the door and found him there, slumped over his desk. The room was eerily still. His face was calm, almost peaceful, as if he had simply drifted off to sleep. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Guilt gnawed at the edges of her resolve, but she forced it aside. She stepped forward, her movements calculated. Opening a nearby window, she allowed the cool morning air to circulate, ensuring the room's temperature stayed low. Then she adjusted Harland's position slightly, making it look natural. By the time the clock struck 7:30 a.m., Lorelai had composed herself. She returned to her room, checking her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was neatly tied back, her yoga outfit impeccable. She dialed 911, her voice steady and calm. "My husband isn't breathing," she said. "I think he died in his sleep." The initial report classified Harland's death as a possible heart attack, given his age and the lack of visible wounds. Lorelai seemed composed during questioning, maintaining her story of a peaceful evening followed by a tragic discovery. But Harland's sister, Delia, refused to accept this explanation. She knew her brother's habits too well. He was healthy and active, Delia insisted to the detectives. "There's no way he just died in his sleep." Delia's persistence led the coroner to perform a thorough toxicology analysis. Days later, the results came back. Harland's blood contained high levels of digitalis, a toxin not commonly found in natural deaths. This revelation turned the investigation on its head. Detectives Jonathan Reeves and Clara Morrison were assigned to the case. They began piecing together Harland's final days, interviewing close friends and colleagues. Lorelai's calm demeanor raised red flags, and her financial activities came under scrutiny. Harland's bank records revealed large, unexplained withdrawals and purchases of luxury items. A deeper dive uncovered another bombshell: Lorelai's affair with Cole Ashton. Surveillance footage showed the two meeting frequently at a boutique hotel. Text messages retrieved from Cole's phone painted a damning picture. In one exchange, Lorelai wrote, "We need to act soon. If he signs that will, I'll lose everything." Under mounting pressure, Cole was brought in for questioning. Initially, he denied involvement, but faced with the evidence, he cracked. His confession was chillingly detailed. He described how Lorelai had discovered the will and devised the plan to poison Harland. Cole admitted to helping her procure the digitalis online and creating an alibi. "She said it was the only way," Cole confessed. "She was desperate. I just wanted to help her." The confession tied all the evidence together, leaving no doubt about their guilt. The investigation had uncovered not just a crime, but a web of betrayal and greed that shocked even seasoned detectives. September 2020, Los Angeles Courtroom. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the trial of Lorelai Shepard and Cole Ashton began. It was a spectacle that drew both media frenzy and public fascination, with reporters lining the steps of the courthouse and spectators vying for a seat inside to witness the drama unfold. The air was thick with anticipation. Everyone wanted to know how justice would be served in this sordid tale of betrayal and greed. The prosecution, led by District Attorney Marcus Gill, wasted no time in painting a vivid picture of the crime. Using a meticulously crafted timeline, Gill described how Lorelai and Cole had conspired to poison Harland Drake, driven by financial desperation and the fear of losing the luxurious life Lorelai had grown accustomed to. Digital evidence played a pivotal role. Emails and text messages between Lorelai and Cole revealed their plotting. One particularly damning text from Lorelai read, "We have no other choice. If he signs the will, everything is over for me." Cole's confession was presented in full, a video recording that left no room for ambiguity. In the footage, Cole detailed how Lorelai had discovered the will, enlisted his help to acquire the deadly digitalis, and constructed an alibi to cover their tracks. "She told me it was the only way," Cole said in the video, his voice trembling. "I didn't think about the consequences. I just wanted to help her." The prosecution also highlighted Lorelai's financial motives. Bank records showed lavish spending and unexplained withdrawals. Witnesses testified about her extravagant lifestyle and her increasing frustration with Harland's tightening control over their finances. As the prosecution laid out its case, the defense team, led by attorney Rebecca Monroe, attempted to counter the narrative. They argued that Lorelai was a victim not of circumstance, but of Cole's manipulation. Monroe portrayed Cole as a master manipulator who preyed on Lorelai's vulnerability and desperation. She emphasized that Lorelai had no history of criminal behavior and that her actions were out of character, driven by fear and coercion. The defense's star moment came when Lorelai took the stand dressed in a modest outfit and with tears glistening in her eyes. She spoke about her struggles. "I was lost," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know how to handle everything falling apart. Cole convinced me it was the only way. I never wanted to hurt Harland." However, her performance on the stand was met with skepticism. Prosecutors cross-examined her, pointing out inconsistencies in her testimony and reminding the jury of the premeditation evident in the text messages and planning. "You claim you were manipulated," Gill pressed, "but isn't it true that you were the one who ordered the digitalis? You were the one who stood to gain the most from Harland's death." The defense faltered under the weight of the evidence. The jury listened intently, their expressions unreadable as they absorbed the arguments from both sides. After weeks of testimony and deliberations, the jury returned with their decision. The courtroom was silent as the foreman read the verdict. "We find the defendant, Lorelai Shepard, guilty of second-degree murder." A gasp rippled through the room, followed by murmurs. Lorelai remained stoic, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Cole Ashton's verdict followed shortly after, guilty of accessory to murder. His cooperation with the investigation earned him a lighter sentence, but the weight of his actions was evident in his downcast expression. Judge Eleanor Reyes delivered the sentences. "Ms. Shepard," the judge said, her voice firm, "your actions were calculated and cold. You prioritized your own desires over the life of another. For this, I sentence you to 20 years in prison without the possibility of parole for the first 15 years. Turning to Cole, she continued, "Mr. Ashton, while your cooperation is noted, it does not absolve you of your role in this crime. You are sentenced to 8 years in prison." The courtroom buzzed with reactions, some satisfied, others outraged. Reporters scrambled to relay the news, while Harland's sister, Delia, sat in quiet reflection. Justice had been served, but the loss of her brother was a wound that no verdict could heal. Delia inherited Harland's estate and vowed to preserve his legacy. She established the Harland Drake Foundation to support young architects. Meanwhile, Lorelai faced isolation in prison, her name forever tarnished. Cole, haunted by his actions, sought redemption through therapy. This tale of ambition, betrayal, and murder serves as a haunting reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind a perfect facade. Beverly Hills may sparkle on the surface, but beneath the glamour, secrets can destroy lives. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Together, we can make a difference.